Hey there, Internet. My name is Luxander, and today we're going to be talking about the idea of having an androgynous chest. Really quickly, before we get to the very end, normally you do this at the end, I just want to say I am about to quit my full-time job to be a full-time student, and if you would like to help me continue to get ongoing medical treatment, you should check out my Patreon. I would very much appreciate it. To give a little bit of background to this thought process that we're about to experience together, I am in a number of surgery groups on Facebook. I'm in top surgery groups and in bottom surgery groups, and the top surgery groups that I'm in are not only about DI chest masculinization surgery. Some of these people in these groups also have radical reductions in addition to the double incision or periareolar or keyhole. Those, you typically think of top surgery for trans men and trans masculine people as being, we're going to get it flat, it's going to be flat time. But some people get radical reductions as well, just going from having an extremely large chest to having maybe an A, B, or C cup chest. I encountered something on one of these pages very recently that sort of threw me for a loop, and I'm still processing it a little bit, and that's part of why I wanted to talk to you all about it. I enjoy working these things out with you all, just sort of talking it through together. Someone in one of these groups posted their post-op pictures of their radical reduction, and they said that their chest feels androgynous now, and that sort of threw me off because, in my mind, it's like a binary thing where you either have a flat chest, which is considered to be masculine, or you have breast tissue that is considered to be feminine. It seems to me that for the most part, it's been like a binary switch. You either have them or you don't. And so in my brain, there wasn't really any such thing as an androgynous chest. And I'm not saying that anyone who has chest tissue that maybe they don't like is necessarily feminine or they have a feminine chest. You can feel however you want about your body and use whatever words you want to describe it. This is just the way that it's me fitting into the structural understanding of what masculinity and femininity are. Those are imposed on us, and they're imposed on me to a point where apparently there is still work to be done for me mentally in undoing that conditioning and walking back from that idea that it's either feminine or masculine, basically. And of course, this has me thinking about my own chest. So it's strange for me that a person who now has a B or C cup would say, oh, my chest feels androgynous now, when I have probably about that same size, and I am very, very insecure about my chest because it feels like one of the least masculine things about me in terms of how people see me and address me. So, my face looks a particular kind of way that people find androgynous. My voice sounds a particular type of way that people find androgynous. And perhaps those two things are not enough for them to comfortably decide whether they should call me ma'am or sir, right? And in my experience, even when I'm binding, there is still something there if you know what to look for and if my clothes are fitting in a particular kind of way. So in my mind, my chest has been the thing that most frequently causes people to gender me as a woman, even though I bind pretty much most of the time that I'm in public. I have found that I am at a size where it's not enough just to wear a super tight sports bra. That's not enough to make my chest seem less there than it is. And I know that I'm still relatively small compared to a lot of other people, so people with really big chests bind and it does absolutely nothing to hide the bump. For me, I can bind and there is a bump, but it's a lot less prominent than a lot of other people. So I understand that the way that I feel about my body is not necessarily 100% rational and isn't necessarily indicative of how things actually are. Like, I might think that my chest is more revealing than it actually is to people. But this has me thinking about the idea of what it would mean to have an androgynous chest, because, as I said, in my mind, it's either there is a significant amount of breast tissue or there isn't, and like I said, this has been a very binary way of thinking, so I'm kind of entertaining the idea and processing the idea that someone who has a relatively small chest might be considered androgynous. Not only how you feel about your own chest, and, you know, if you have hair growing on your chest in addition to you haven't had top surgery yet, that's very androgynous, and that can even be masculine for a lot of people. And I've obviously talked about the term androgyny before and the issues that I have with it. I'll put a link up here. So it's either it means nebulous, non-gendered, or it means a mixture of the two genders, you know what I mean? So it's either this is outside of or absent of gender, or this is encompassing of multiple aspects of gender. So an androgynous chest it definitely can exist. I think it's a real, absolutely true thing that can exist. And so this is me coming to the realization that thinking of my chest as androgynous by definition might actually be very good for my mental health and the way that I think about and process the idea of, do I want surgery or not, and all that stuff. So if my chest is small enough that I can bind and use certain types of clothing to make myself seem totally flat, and it's also just noticeable enough that I can wear a low-cut shirt and a push-up bra if I really felt like it and seem very feminine, then I think that that's definitionally androgynous. If people look at my chest and can't tell whether it's masculine or feminine, as people typically think of these things, then isn't that definitionally androgynous? Either way, you're either encompassing aspects of both or nebulously kind of neither. I think it works under both definitions of the term. I think it can be really hard to think of chest tissue as something that can be androgynous, or something that can be sort of inherently gender neutral in any capacity. I think that a lot of people who have excess chest stuff and don't want to often feel like this is a betrayal of who they actually are. And I have felt that way a lot of the time about my chest, and it has felt a lot of the time like getting top surgery might be one of the better ways to keep myself from getting misgendered. Honestly, I don't really think it's going to make that big of a difference, though. If I bind already, and my chest looks relatively flat already, then that's not the thing that's going to solve my problems. It's not like a solution to that problem, especially since I have mixed positive and negative feelings about my chest, and it depends on the day, and it depends on the circumstances. But I think that thinking of my chest as androgynous, or as somewhat gender neutral, might really help figure out exactly how I feel about my body. It's been in my mind a thing where, like, oh, if I have chest surgery, which is typically masculinizing, I will then have a non-binary chest. Then my body would feel non-binary. But that's silly, because my body is already non-binary. My chest is already non-binary. It's just hard for me not to think of certain parts of my body as coded as feminine, because they are coded as feminine. That's not me saying anything about my own body. They're coded by society as feminine. And I think no matter who you are, those kinds of ideas are so pervasive that it can be hard to reconcile how you feel about your own body. Like, what does it mean that I, as a transmasculine person, don't hate my chest the way that it is, you know? That can really throw a wrench in your self-actualization. If you think that being trans is about hating your body, or about hating the things that are typically associated with your assigned gender and stuff like that. This is also fitting into kind of a weird place in my brain where I feel kind of weird about seeing people get radical reductions, people who have very, very large chests, who then, after their radical reductions, have a chest closer to what I have, and knowing that that kind of reduction isn't even possible really for me, I'm not even sure that I could go much smaller in order to have a chest that's easier to hide without binding, for example. I mean, maybe. I haven't really looked into it because I haven't been interested, because my chest is already very small, or at least pretty small, smaller than a lot of other people. I am a very skinny person, and that kind of translates to the proportions of the rest of my body, and I'm fortunate in that way, I guess. It was just hard to imagine that someone would want a chest like mine. And I'm not talking about people who are assigned male who go on hormones who want to have a particular sized chest. That's not what I mean. I kind of mean more other people who are assigned female who have bigger chests but want to have a smaller chest, and their end goal is to be where I am now, which for me is my before. This is my before, and I'm very uncomfortable with it a lot of times. But if you were someone who started out with a chest that you absolutely could not reasonably bind in a way that is effective for passing, then yeah, having a chest like mine would be ideal if you don't want to have a totally flat chest. If you would want to have the option to either get the titty out or bind and put it away. My chest is actually the perfect size for that. It's basically the perfect size for, I'm gonna bind and wear a t-shirt and like a plaid overshirt, and that will be enough to make me look flat. T-shirts don't always do it, but it's better than having like a triple D or whatever, you know? I understand now that my chest size is good for someone who wants to change their gender presentation from one day to the next, someone who is interested in performing different gendered roles in different aspects of their lives. So this is actually, it's actually been really eye-opening for me and helped me sort of realize that the way that I have thought about my own body has not necessarily been productive, and that there is this other way of thinking about my body that might make me feel a little bit less like surgery is so necessary, you know? Like, my feelings about whether I want top surgery change, and a lot of that is about my social dysphoria. But I don't know that it's necessary for me to feel that way. I think that it's probably a combination of factors that make people gender me in a way that I don't like, and I think it might be better for me to think of myself in this way, knowing that I have a body that other people want because it's able to kind of shapeshift and change from one context to another. And that's also not to say that other people thinking that my body is a good fit for them means that it's a good fit for me. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm more trying to say that I have been uncomfortable about my body in a way that, with this new information, kind of doesn't make any sense anymore. For me, I do like sometimes getting the titty out, and very, very occasionally, I don't know, wearing a dress or something like that. It is good for me, I think, to be able to do that, because my gender is not fixed necessarily, or at least my gender presentation isn't fixed. I feel like some days I want to be cute and wear a skirt, and some days, most of the days, I would rather not. I would rather wear t-shirts and bind and everything. And I think that both of those things are valid, and both of those things can fit into a healthy non-binary gender expression. For me, everybody's non-binary gender expression looks differently. I'm not making any statements about anybody else. You do you, babe. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to process that out loud and share those thoughts, because I mean, that's what this channel is for. Not only do I like doing the education stuff, but I also enjoy doing sort of deep dive, critical thinking stuff that really only makes sense to other people who have been in this community for a long time. So if you liked this video, and if it gave you like some more stuff to think about, I would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments. If you disagree, I would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments. And again, I just want to restate, I'm not saying that anyone's chest is inherently masculine or feminine or androgynous, just that the way that other people think about stuff has enlightened me to perhaps thinking about my own body in a different way, and I find this kind of validating, and I just wanted to put it out there in case anyone else was having similar thoughts, and maybe you hadn't even considered this before either, like I hadn't considered it before. So that's all. Again, if you like this video, let me know what you thought in the comments. I love to hear from you as always, and again, if you want to help me continue to pay for mental health treatment and other stuff that I need to have done, check out my Patreon. As I stated, I'm about to go from having an income to not having an income, so that's much appreciated. That is going to be all from me today, though. If you like this video, please give me pretty analytics to look at and comments to read. Find me on Patreon, subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications, and I hope you have an okay day. Bye. Thank you so much, as always, to all of my patrons, the ones listed here. The special shout-out today is going to Amber Music, David Walter, Jenny Swindles, Gretchen Becker, Wellington Marcus, Pine Snake, Jess Zendrex, and Mr. Atheist. As always, thank you so much. You're great.